The year was 2324. Humanity had spread across the galaxy, laying claim to dozens of star systems and countless planets. We had fought for our place in the cosmos, against creatures more powerful and technologically advanced than we could imagine. But it was not our advanced technology or our sheer force of will that had won us our position. It was our adaptability, our unyielding drive to survive. And now, on the eve of the most significant council meeting in history, that drive would be tested in ways no one could predict. The Galactic Council, a conglomerate of the universe's most powerful species, had always viewed humanity as something different. We were unrefined, unpolished, but there was an unmistakable spark within us. And that spark had been the reason why the Council had allowed us to rise from being mere survivors to one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy. But, as with all things, their tolerance had worn thin. Admiral Calendarius, a seasoned human officer, stood at the head of a long conference table aboard the flagship Pride of Earth. His sharp, calculating eyes scanned the faces of the other council members. He had once viewed these beings as the arbiters of galactic order. Now, he saw them for what they truly were: weak, scared, and unwilling to face the unstoppable tide that was coming. The galaxy's most powerful species, those who had once ruled with an iron fist, now found themselves cornered by a human-driven rebellion. A rebellion sparked by a simple truth: we had shed the chains that had once bound us. They had underestimated us, and now they were about to pay the price. "Admiral," said Counselor Varnith, a towering insectoid from the Zorus system, his multiple eyes narrowing with disdain, "this rebellion. It is not just an annoyance anymore. The humans have grown too bold. They believe they are invincible. This cannot be allowed to continue." Kellen felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The Council had demanded action, swift and brutal action. The time had come to crush the rebellion once and for all, and the Council believed that the solution lay in wiping out humanity, to send a message to the galaxy. Their message was clear: submit or die. But Kellen knew something they didn't. He had seen humanity's potential, its unshakable spirit. These beings, this collection of species who had long considered themselves superior, had no idea what they were dealing with. Killing billions of humans to send a message would do nothing but push us further toward the edge. "I disagree," Kellen said, his voice steady but firm. "The humans are not a threat to be exterminated. They are a force to be reckoned with. If we continue down this path, we will be making the greatest mistake in galactic history." The room fell silent. The council members exchanged glances. Kellen could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. Varnith, who had long held contempt for humanity, was the first to speak. "Your words are nothing but weakness, Admiral," Varnith hissed, his mandibles clicking with anger. "What you fail to realize is that humans are reckless, impulsive creatures. They have no place in this galaxy. They will bring ruin to us all if we allow them to continue." Kellen met his gaze without flinching. "And yet, in every battle we've fought, the humans have shown resilience. Innovation. Where you see recklessness, I see a drive to survive, to adapt, to push beyond what was thought possible. That is the core of humanity." Counselor Draelis, a sophisticated being with a crystalline exoskeleton, spoke next, her voice a soft hum. "The rebellion is too widespread. Your people have already conquered entire systems. The cost of negotiation of peace is beyond reach. We must act." Kellen's heart clenched. He had spent his entire career working to build bridges between the Council and humanity, but it seemed that the desire to maintain the status quo was stronger than the will to find common ground. They were preparing to annihilate billions. "Admiral," Counselor Tsar, a member of the highly intelligent Milas species, interjected, "you are too emotionally attached to the humans. Their rebellion cannot be tolerated. They have violated the very fabric of peace that we have fought for over millennia." Kellen's mind raced. These were not words of diplomacy or reason, they were words of fear. The Council feared what humanity had become, a rising force that could topple the established order. The very fact that they were discussing extermination instead of negotiation proved it. We don't need to destroy humanity, Kellen said, his voice rising with a quiet intensity. We can integrate them into the greater galactic community. We can create alliances, build peace. This is not a war that needs to end in bloodshed. But it already has, said Varnath, his voice venomous. The humans have shown their willingness to fight to the death. They will not back down. You should be leading us toward a final solution. Kellen felt his chest tighten. This was no longer just a political debate, it was a matter of survival. His hand hovered over the Council's terminal, where the vote on humanity's fate was about to take place. He had one choice left, one final act. You'll regret this, Kellen said quietly, before pressing the button to broadcast his statement across the Council's chambers. Humanity will fight. And when we do, we will show you the true cost of underestimating us. The room erupted in chaos as the final vote was cast. The Council had spoken, and Kellen knew what that meant. It meant the end of any hope for peaceful coexistence. Outside the Council chambers, Kellen's thoughts were already with his fleet, positioned strategically in the galaxy's farthest reaches. Humanity had shed the chains of subjugation. Now they would shed the blood of those who thought they could control them. The Council had signed their own extinction, and humanity was ready to fulfill their grim prophecy. The galaxy was changing. Across every star system where humanity had taken root, whispers of the Council's decision spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council had spoken. Humanity would be destroyed. But the Council had made a grave mistake. They hadn't realized that humanity's will to survive was not only strong but relentless. Kellen Darius had known this from the start. He knew the Council underestimated the power of human ingenuity. They didn't understand that when pushed into a corner, humanity would adapt, learn, grow, and strike back. The command center of the Pride of Earth hummed with activity. Ships moved in and out of the docking bays as officers and crew members scrambled to prepare for what was coming. The time for diplomacy had passed. Kellen knew that no words could change the Council's decision, no pleasantries could save billions of lives. Humanity was on the brink of war, but Kellen wasn't afraid. He had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was the only chance they had. Admiral Kellen stood before the large viewport of the Pride of Earth, watching as the vastness of space stretched before him. The stars were endless, and within them, countless possibilities existed. But the looming threat of annihilation cast a dark shadow over them all. His fingers gripped the edge of the viewport as he thought about the Council, their arrogance, and their decision. Admiral, the fleet is ready. A voice broke through his thoughts. It was Commander Eris Kane, Kellen's right-hand officer. Kane was a young, fierce fighter, his loyalty to humanity unshakable. He had grown up under Kellen's command, and together, they had faced some of humanity's most difficult challenges. But this was different. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy, this was about survival. Kellen turned to face him. Have you spoken to the other commanders? Are the fleet's battle lines drawn? Kane nodded. We're set, sir. All forces are in position. The fleet is ready to move on the Council's coordinates the moment we get the signal. The Council had made one critical mistake. They believed they could simply erase humanity, destroy Earth, and everything humanity had built in one fell swoop. They had underestimated the power of a galaxy united, a humanity that had risen from the ashes time and time again. They had underestimated Kellen. I want the fleet to stay in formation, Kellen ordered, his voice steady. We hit them hard and fast. The Council thinks they're untouchable. Let's show them otherwise. Eris Kane's face hardened. Understood, Admiral. We won't give them the mercy they showed us. Kellen turned back to the viewport, his mind racing. The battle would be unlike any the galaxy had seen before. It wasn't just a war of ships and weapons, it was a war for survival. The Council had only one weapon they thought would ensure humanity's extinction, their overwhelming technological superiority. But humanity had something the Council didn't. A hunger for freedom that nothing could quench. Signal the fleet. Prepare for Phase 1, Kellen said, his voice low but full of authority. This ends now. As the pride of Earth and its fleet cut through the vastness of space, Kellen's mind stayed focused on the task ahead. He thought back to the day when he had first stepped into the council chambers. It had been years ago, but it felt like a lifetime. At that moment, he had been a mere officer, a soldier for the cause. Now, he was the leader of humanity's last stand. "We can't just rely on force," Kellen said quietly to himself, running a hand through his dark hair. "We need to show them what they've done." Commander Kane approached him again, a data pad in hand. "Admiral, we've intercepted a communication from the Council. It's encrypted, but it looks like they've begun mobilizing their forces in anticipation of our attack." Kellen nodded. "Good. Let them think we're playing into their hands. It'll be their mistake." The tension in the air was palpable. The fate of billions rested on the decisions made in this moment. But Kellen had no doubt about what needed to be done. Humanity had been pushed to the edge. It was time to fight back. "Set course for the Zora system," Kellen commanded. "We'll hit their command center first. If we take out their leadership, their forces will fall into disarray. Kane, get to the fleet's command. I'll be with you shortly." Kane gave a sharp salute and turned to leave. Kellen watched him go, his mind still racing with possibilities. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for everything humanity stood for: freedom, resilience, and the right to exist. Hours later, the fleet arrived at the Zora system. The stars loomed large in the black expanse, but the Zora system was like a scar on the galaxy's face. The Council's command center, a massive space station known as the Eclipse Citadel, sat at the heart of the system. It was impenetrable, protected by a ring of defense satellites, energy shields, and an elite fleet of Council ships. Kellen stared at the holographic map of the system, his eyes narrowing. The Eclipse Citadel was the nerve center of the Council's military force. If they could disable it, the rest of the galaxy would be wide open. The Council's power would crumble, and humanity could take its place among the stars, not as pawns, but as a force to be reckoned with. "Admiral, we're in position." Kane's voice crackled over the comms. Kellen's lips curled into a grim smile. "Then let's end this. Phase 1 begins now." The pride of Earth and its fleet moved swiftly, cutting through space at unimaginable speeds. The Council's satellites began to light up as they detected the incoming fleet. Kellen had anticipated this. They would be ready. But they weren't ready for what came next. As the fleet neared the Eclipse Citadel, Kellen activated the fleet's secret weapon, the Nightmare Protocol. A wave of EMP bursts erupted from the flagship, blanketing the entire system in a cascade of electromagnetic pulses. The Council's defense systems, once thought impenetrable, began to flicker and fail. Shields dropped, satellites went dark, and the once mighty fleet of the Council became nothing more than sitting targets. "Now, Kane!" Kellen barked. "Let's bring the fight to them." The fleet surged forward, weapons blazing, as the Council's command center lay vulnerable before them. This was no longer just about survival. This was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would never bow to tyranny. No matter the odds. No matter the cost. The storm had arrived. And the Council had no idea what was coming. The Eclipse Citadel loomed before them, its massive form casting a shadow across the Zora system. What was once a symbol of the Council's unassailable power now stood vulnerable, its formidable defenses crippled by Kellen's Nightmare Protocol. The battle had only just begun, but Kellen could already feel the weight of their victory pressing down on him. "All ships advance," Kellen commanded, his voice clear and unwavering. He stood at the head of the command table, staring at the holographic battlefield before him. The Council's once pristine fleet was now disorganized, their ships drifting aimlessly as their central command had crumbled. The Eclipse Citadel, with its vast energy shields now flickering erratically, was exposed, ready to fall. "Admiral, the Eclipse Citadel is vulnerable," Commander Eris Kane said, his voice tense. "We've disabled their defense systems, but their main reactor is still online. If we don't act quickly, they'll get the backup systems online before we can land the final blow." Kellen's gaze remained fixed on the flickering holographic map of the Citadel. The Citadel's main reactor was the key to their victory. It powered the entire station, its weapon systems, shields, and even its communication array. Destroying the reactor would cripple the Council's ability to respond. But time was running out. "We can't give them the time to regroup," Kellen said. His mind raced as he considered their next move. "Prepare the boarding party. We'll storm the Citadel. It's time to end this." Kane nodded. "Aye, Admiral. The crew is ready." The plan was set. The fleet would hold the line, ensuring that no reinforcements could reach the Citadel, while Kellen and his team boarded the station itself. The task ahead was dangerous. Fighting through the Citadel's halls, which had been designed to repel invasions, would be no easy feat, but Kellen had no doubt that humanity's determination would carry them through. As the Pride of Earth hovered above the eclipsed Citadel, Kellen stood in the hangar bay, watching as soldiers filed into the boarding shuttles. Each of them wore the same expression: resolve. They knew the stakes. Humanity's future depended on this mission. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. "Admiral," Kane said as he approached, adjusting his helmet, "we've got your team ready. Once you're inside, the clock will start ticking. The Citadel's self-destruct sequence will begin if the reactor's core is damaged. You've got one shot at this." Kellen met his eyes. "Then let's make it count." The boarding shuttles launched, cutting through the void of space like arrows aimed at a target. The Citadel's docking bay was a sprawling, industrial complex, littered with debris from the battle that had just raged outside. The team moved swiftly, securing the area and clearing out any remaining defense personnel. Kellen led the charge, his weapon raised as his team followed him. They fought through the narrow hallways of the Citadel, encountering resistance at every turn. The Council's soldiers were not unskilled, but they were outnumbered and unprepared for the ferocity of the human assault. Each time they regrouped, the humans pressed forward, pushing them back further. As they neared the reactor core, the walls shook with the tremor of nearby explosions. Kellen's heart raced, but his focus never wavered. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the Citadel, closer to the end of the Council's reign. The door to the reactor chamber slid open with a hiss, revealing the core at the center of the room. It pulsed with an ominous glow, its energy crackling with raw power. But it wasn't just the reactor Kellen focused on. He knew the Council had one final card to play, an emergency defense mechanism hidden within the reactor itself. "Deploy the charges," Kellen ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. His team placed explosives around the reactor's core, setting them with meticulous precision. But as they did, the doors to the chamber slammed shut, trapping them inside. A cold voice echoed through the room, amplified by the Citadel's internal speakers. "You have made a grave mistake, Admiral Darius." Kellen's stomach tightened. He knew that voice. It was Counselor Varnith, the insected leader who had advocated for humanity's extermination. "You will not win this battle," Varnith continued, his voice laced with venom. "The Council's influence spans beyond this system. You are too late. You are already doomed." Kellen raised his head, meeting the camera in the corner of the room with unwavering defiance. "You've already lost," he said. "Humanity has always been underestimated. We don't need your permission to survive." The room shook again, this time from the force of a massive explosion echoing through the Citadel. Kellen's eyes narrowed. The Council had activated the self-destruct sequence. They were trying to take them down with them. "Move now!" Kellen shouted. His team scrambled to finish setting the charges. As the countdown to the self-destruct began, the reactor's core flared brighter, its energy threatening to overload. The hum of the Citadel's systems echoed louder and louder, the pressure building with each passing second. Finally, with a deafening roar, the charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the Citadel. The reactor's core exploded, engulfing the entire chamber in a blinding flash of light. Kellen's team was thrown to the floor by the force of the blast, but the mission had been a success. The core was destroyed. The Citadel was falling. Kellen stumbled to his feet, his breath ragged. The walls around him buckled and cracked as the Citadel's internal systems collapsed. His team was already on their feet, moving toward the exit. Admiral, Kane's voice crackled through the comms. The fleet has secured the area. The Council's ships are fleeing. The Eclipse Citadel is done for. Kellen smiled grimly. We've won, Kane. Humanity's future is ours. As they made their way back to the hangar, Kellen knew that this victory was more than just the fall of a space station. It was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The Council had shed human blood, believing it would mark the end of the species. But instead, it had sealed their own extinction. And now, the galaxy would know. Humanity would no longer be anyone's pawn. The universe was ours to shape.